We look now to the delicate, sensual jungles of India, where the Conservatives have said that Keir Starmer has been getting his policy ideas from. The dropping of the green pledges, they say he can balance multiple policy positions in one, as their poster says, pulling off the Starmer Sutra, as we've seen a little bit earlier on in the show. Let's get the reaction of the panel. We spoke about this a little bit earlier. I mean, it's sort of funny on Valentine's Day, but I mean, I haven't particularly celebrated Valentine's Day, and it's nearly, 10 o'clock at night, so I don't think I'm going to be getting anything particularly interesting going on. But, I mean, Starmer Sutra, he is finding himself in a place where he can't actually rely on any policy at all that he's not going to change his mind on.
Well, it probably makes him sound more interesting than he is. He's infamously dull in his sort of private life, and I think a little bit of sort of cavorting might make voters feel a bit differently about him. But obviously the thing about his multiple positions is that it's deliberate.
Yeah.
I mean, the Labour Party is deliberately being vague on any manifesto pledges, and that vagueness goes beyond the usual kind of wait till see into the election. Because they're in this unenviable position of trying to court votes in various different sections of sort of political allegiance.
Yeah.
They keep trying to pretend that they're with the red wall, but they're not really. They don't want to admit that they're mainly middle class,
right, but
yet those are the people they're going to have to rely on. And so it's this sort of like constant shifting around, trying to, and also I think a nervousness, the dropping of the 23 billion or whatever it was pledged.
28, yeah.
28 billion pledge was all about saying, we're not going to let anyone get us. We're not going to let anyone catch us out. And I think actually that was really cowardly, because instead of saying, I mean, I disagree with the whole net zero thing and all the rest of it, but if you believe in something, you're meant to have an ideology as a party, you're meant to be able to make that happen.
And they kept saying they weren't going to give up on it, didn't they? I mean, Ed Miliband was famously, unfortunately, tweeting only last year that, we will not give up on this. And then when he actually did finally give up on it, he didn't really have much to say about it.
There's another great metaphor, isn't there, around Boris Johnson that Dominic Cummings came up with, and that's the trolley.
Yeah.
And he would sort of lurch side to side based on every day his sort of ideas would change, or whoever was speaking to him last in the room, suddenly that was his opinion. I don't think Starmer's quite that bad, but he definitely has an eye to what the media is saying, to what various different factions in his party are saying. I mean, when he first got elected as Labour leader, famously, he made all these pledges to the left of the party, pretending he's some sort of new kind of...
Well, he was going to nationalise everything, wasn't he?
Well, quite, and then he sort of reversed on all of that stuff, and now he's become a kind of sort of Blairite centrist figure again, which is quite depressing, isn't it? The sort of lack of ideological conviction in our politics, I think, is a real shame. I don't think it's very democratic, where you've got both parties who don't really believe in anything, and are quite happy to scrap their main so-called policies in a heartbeat.
Yeah. I think that's reflected, though, in the voters. We feel this unease. There's this undercurrent of, where do I place my faith? Because I feel it's a bit, look at this farcical government, sparring with each other on social media. I mean, it's funny for about 5 seconds, but when you actually think about these are the people running our country, I just think it's ridiculous.
It is.
I've had enough, and quite frankly,
I think the country's had enough, hasn't it? I mean, we are at that point. And I mean, if you were going to continue a supermarket analogy, I suppose, with Boris Johnson and Keir Starmer's the guy who's very careful about how he pushes the trolley, and he goes down one aisle after another, but he doesn't actually buy anything. And he gets to the end of the day, and he's just got an empty trolley, and he's got nothing in there because he doesn't know what he wants.
But that's the interesting thing, is that I think Starmer has always banked on the idea of that Boris Johnson was chaotic and promised anything to anyone, and he's sensible and calm. And I think that's a real misunderstanding of what people want. It's not that people, the chaos of Boris Johnson was known before the 2019 election. What won that election for them was that they had a clear position in relation to Brexit, a clear position in relation to that whole discussion about democracy, and that's what sold all those red wallers over to the Conservatives. But it's kind of a bit insulting, this whole idea of what we need is just sensible, even-handed, calm, dull government. Because actually, it's not that people want big, exciting madness, it's that they want big ideas, something with substance. Whereas I think this is a problem across the whole of Europe at the moment, which is you see populism's not a problem, but you see populist backlashes against this kind of approach of technocratic, managerial, calmly, smoothly, leave it up to us sort of approach to politics, which is what Keir Starmer is. That's why he gets on so well with Macron and people like that.
Well, that's exactly right. And I mean, if you look at the opposition, I suppose, to the Keir Starmer tweets, the Labour Party did their own version of it with their Spotify rather hopeless list of songs, including Stairway to Recession. I don't think this one wins, do you? I mean, I think out of all of them, out of the two of them, probably Starmer Sutra is probably better, isn't it?
I think the Tories are really trying to become mega trolls on Twitter. I don't know if you've noticed this recently, and I think it's kind of a sign of desperation, to be honest. They're trying to make headlines. We're talking about it, so it's kind of won, hasn't it?
Right.
I think they're doing quite a good job in that sense, but I mean, this is just complete desperation from the Conservatives coming up with all these adverts to try and take the piss out of Keir Starmer.
Right.
It feels desperate from them both, I'm not going to lie. I think it feels desperate from both angles. And I think what you were saying, Ella, about the populism stance, we're taking our cues from America. You've got, the Biden figure, the more sensible, left-wing Starmer, and then you've got the crazy, right-wing faction. And I just think...
But that doesn't work with Sunak, like Ella was saying, because he's not crazy, is he?
We are starting... I've started to see this with a lot of social media influencers. They're really, like, Hammergate and everything like that. They're really starting to capitalise on his what he's done wrong and makes far funnier songs than what Labour...
Well, the other problem with these songs, right, is it's not particularly up to speed, is it? I mean, Stairway to Heaven's not exactly a new song. And Don't Go Breaking My Heart, Elton John and Kiki D. I mean, I remember that, but you guys won't. I mean, that was in the 70s, for heaven's sake. I mean, it's a very long time ago. Who are they appealing to?
It's funny that it seems that both parties are now obsessed with TikTok and sort of this new kind of era. So much so that they're now paying influencers to try and dissuade...
It's like they've suddenly discovered influencers on TikTok and they suddenly think they can do something. I mean,